standing for the presentation of colors and the playing of the national anthem.
Mark time. Mark. All's turn. Off. Detail. Off. Freeze in. Out.
Please be seated. Good afternoon. My name is Debbie Worley, and on behalf of the Secret Service, I'd like to welcome you to the dedication of the United States Secret Service Memorial Building. Having been involved in the headquarters consolidation project for over 10 years, today represents both a personal and professional joy for me, as well as a major milestone for the Secret Service. We are delighted that you could share in this special day with us. Giving the invocation today is the Reverend Peter Bldg. Reverend Bldg is the pastor at St. Patrick's Church, which is located nearby on 10th Street. It is especially nice that Reverend Bldg could be here with us today, since he is very supportive of the law enforcement community. In fact, each May his parish sponsors the Blue Mass, which is celebrated to pray for members of the law enforcement community. Reverend Bldg.
And let us pray. Almighty God and Father, we stand before you on this dedication day to seek your blessing on the United States Secret Service Memorial Building. We know there are no secrets with you, for you are all-knowing. You are all-loving, and you make possible the work of human hands, the hands which toiled long and hard to build this beautiful building. With much labor, you shape and polish us into living stones, stones with you as the unshakable foundation. Bless those who work here, and bless our wonderful neighborhood. Protect this building. Make it a center of loving service for those who protect our nation's leaders and visiting world leaders, and those who protect the integrity of our financial system. Dwell within the hearts and minds of all who labor in this part of your kingdom. Make them men and women of integrity and courage. Help and protect them when their responsibility puts them in harm's way, out of service for those they are called to protect. Finally, loving Father, bless and protect our President, the Secretary of the Treasury, the Director of the Secret Service, all governmental leaders, and men and women of the Secret Service, both here and in the field. Into their care, you place the protection and care of our nation. bless this building and all who visit and work here. Bless each and every one of us. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend. I now have the privilege of introducing Robert Peck, the Commissioner of the Public Building Service at the General Services Administration. Commissioner Peck is a Yale Law School graduate, has been a real estate lawyer, commercial mortgage banker, and former Chief of Staff for Senator Moynihan. He has spoken and written extensively on architecture, historic preservation, and urban design issues. Mr. Peck has also been the services partner throughout all phases of the new building project. Please welcome Commissioner Peck.
Thank you, Deborah. Mr. President, Secretary Summers, Director Stafford, building partners, friends, and guests. I am proud to be here today on behalf of the General Services Administration and our Administrator, Dave Barham. GSA is often called the government's landlord. Frankly, we know we are sometimes called other names by our tenants. On this occasion, we can be called proud partner, and I think we have a happy customer. I hope that's right. We had great partners in our government clients, the Treasury Department, and especially the Secret Service, for whom this building had to be both functional and secure. We had private partners also who, as in all GSA projects, actually designed and built this handsome structure. HOK, the architects, Clark Construction, the general contractor, and Sverdrup Facilities, the construction manager. And I'd like to acknowledge the federal employees who worked on this project every day for years and who deserve so much of the credit for bringing it in so successfully. From the Secret Service, Deborah Worley, who you've seen, project manager, and Mike Pugh, the construction project manager. From GSA, Darrell Brown, project manager, Christine Kelly, the contracting officer, and Gary Lee, project executive. I'd like to ask those people and the representatives of our private partners to stand so you can recognize them. Thank you. GSA is proud of this building. Under this administration, we have returned the federal government to the tradition of architectural excellence that began with Washington and Jefferson's vision for this city and their personal interest in the design of the White House and the Capitol. It was a tradition of quality that prevailed in the following century, as federal courthouses, custom houses, and post offices literally planted the flag in towns throughout the country. Those buildings and their state and local cousins imparted permanence and dignity both to newly minted governments and newly founded communities. It is small wonder that civic buildings make up such a large portion of the architectural treasures that Americans want to save. It is a wonder that in much of the latter half of this century, we almost forgot that architecture, to quote Senator Moynihan, is as fundamental a sign of the competence of government as will be found. As GSA this year celebrates its 50th anniversary, and with the support of our congressional appropriators, thank you, Congressman Colby, we are rehabilitating many of our historic buildings, turning them into productive 21st century workplaces. We are building new courthouses, laboratories, and border stations that win design awards, buildings that treat federal construction dollars once again as investments in community building, buildings that symbolize to federal employees and citizens alike a government that innovates, a government that works, and a government that cares. Goodness knows that Washington already is so much a city of federal buildings, and yet in this immediate area, there had been no federal construction since the old Patent Office building, now the Portrait Gallery and Museum of American Art, were built in the mid-19th century. So here too, with the enthusiastic cooperation of the Secret Service, we have seized upon the opportunity for federal construction to help stimulate a neighborhood. With our partners, we have succeeded. This stunning building sets a standard of the highest design quality. With tough security embedded in it, but camouflaged, the building still presents a friendly face to the neighborhood. In this new headquarters, we have created a building worthy of this capital city, a building worthy of the proud traditions and selfless dedication of the men and women of the Secret Service, a building, as we in GSA like to say, worthy of the American people. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Peck, for your support today and throughout the project. It's my pleasure now to introduce Brian Stafford, Director of the United States Secret Service. Prior to joining the Secret Service, Director Stafford served 2 years in the United States Army and completed a tour of duty in Vietnam. Director Stafford began his career with the Secret Service in 1971 as a special agent and has since served in a variety of assignments. Within the organization's supervisory ranks, Director Stafford has served in the Special Investigations and Security Division, the Miami Field Office, and as the Special Agent in charge of the Presidential Protective Division. In his last assignment, he held the key position of Assistant Director of the Office of Protective Operations. He was appointed as the service's 20th Director on March 4th, 1999. Please welcome Director Stafford.
I want to show you a little technology here. Maybe I can hide behind this thing. This is a unique experience for me today. I think it's probably the first time I've ever been on a stage with President Clinton that I haven't had an earpiece and a ballistic vest on. But it is my distinct honor and pleasure to welcome the President of the United States, Monsignor Bldg, Secretary Summers, GSA Commissioner Peck, Project Manager Worley, distinguished members of Congress, Congressman Hoyer, Congressman Colby, former directors, and honored guests. A short time ago, I was the agent in charge of President Clinton's Secret Service detail, so I'm sure he won't mind if I tell a little story. I recall a fairly hectic day we once had. That the president had multiple stops. We had events at private residences, at colleges, at museums, at government buildings. All that not being very unusual for a day. But what was unusual is that every event, every facility that we went into, I noticed the president would scrutinize the entire area, and he'd just be looking all over the place. And at first, I thought he was going to compliment some of my security enhancements, but he hadn't mentioned that during the day, and he usually would if he noticed those enhancements. So at day's end, I mentioned, Mr. President, I said, can you tell me why you looked all over the place at these events all day long? And he said, well, I said, was there a problem with security or something that I need to be aware of? He said, no, the security was fine. He said, it's just that someday we'll be leaving the White House. We'll have a home of our own, and we've been to some very interesting places today. And I've just been looking around for some decorating and some design ideas. So hopefully, when you have an opportunity to look around this new generation federal building, you'll come away with some additional good ideas. It's truly a pleasure to be standing here today to officially dedicate this wonderful new structure. This is the first time in the Secret Service's 134-year history that we've ever had our own headquarters building. We're finally enjoying the results of a project that spanned over 20 years and involved a great deal of hard work on the part of many people and various organizations. From a historical perspective, we began to evaluate the feasibility of consolidating our headquarters in the 1970s. My predecessors envisioned the value of this effort, and the Department of Treasury, who provided us with their assistance in this significant undertaking. In June of 1992, Congress authorized the funding for the construction, and I'd like to acknowledge the efforts of the Office of Management and Budget and members of Congress and thank them for their support during this critical budget process. Following the selection of a building site, the General Services Administration hired one of the world's leading architectural and engineering firms, HOK, to design this building with the visionary input of our management team. First, the building needed to be secure. It was during the design phase in 1995 when tragedy struck with the bombing of the federal building in Oklahoma City, and we lost 6 members of the Secret Service family. As a result of the bombing, HOK and our own technical experts added further structural enhancements. Second, we wanted to reflect our sense of family The Secret Service is employee-oriented, and we wanted the building to embody that architecturally. The atrium and its interconnecting stairwell allow people to see each other while moving about the building, thereby maintaining connectivity and encouraging interaction. I strongly agree with a statement made by Bill Hellmuth of HOK that if you can create a wonderful place to go to work, you can attract and retain the very best people. The Secret Service has just that. Another goal of the design phase was to bring as much natural light into the building as possible. And finally, we wanted to make certain that the facility would be flexible enough to adapt to changes in technology, staffing, and organizational structure, ensuring that our needs would be met for many years to come. The actual construction was awarded to the Clark Construction Group, one of the nation's largest building contractors. Clark's experience, commitment to excellence, and willingness to maintain a close alliance with us guaranteed that the construction was of the highest caliber. Throughout the entire process, the General Services Administration has been at our side. Our appreciation is extended to the GSA and their many fine professionals who have worked tirelessly with us for many years. The Secret Service employees who served on the headquarters consolidation team were instrumental in keeping the work on track. These employees put in countless hours to ensure a smooth transition, and we also owe them a great deal of thanks. On the floor above us, you will find an exhibit hall that represents the Secret Service's past with a series of interactive and timeline segments. It has been designed to provide historical information about the very important missions of the Secret Service since our creation in 1865 by Abraham Lincoln. Next to the exhibit hall, we have constructed a wall of honor which memorializes each of our employees who lost their lives in the line of duty. It is to these individuals that we are dedicating this building and acknowledging the sacrifices they made for our country. On behalf of the United States Secret Service, I feel very fortunate and proud to dedicate our new headquarters building today. We thank all of you for being here to celebrate this very special occasion with us. Now it is my distinct pleasure to introduce the Secretary of Treasury, Lawrence H. Summers. Secretary Summers has been part of the Department of Treasury since 1993, becoming Secretary on July 2nd of this year. He has forged a strong, positive relationship with the Secret Service, and we are appreciative of all his work on our behalf. Ladies and gentlemen, Secretary Larry Summers.
Mr. President, Brian, thank you for that very kind introduction. Thank you all for being here. Deborah, you told me that you've been working on this project 10 years. Must give you a real sense of satisfaction to see this beautiful building and what it means for the Secret Service. And it's good to see the former directors who were so integral in planning this building and bringing this moment to us, to see my colleagues in Treasury's enforcement area, and to see two of the congressmen who've helped to make this possible, Jim Colby and Steny Hoyer, here with us today. This is an important moment, as Brian said, for the Secret Service. After years of being situated in several buildings scattered around the town, marks the first time that the Secret Service has consolidated its headquarters in one location. One location and one consolidation that will help the service in what are its absolutely critical missions, not just of providing protection, but also combating counterfeiting and financial crime and fighting terrorism more effectively than ever before. But as important, as beautiful, and as significant as this building is, what is most important about any organization is its people. And I want to salute the men and women of the Secret Service for their remarkable dedication, courage, and commitment to the very important work that they do. This is, as many here know better than I, a particularly challenging time for the Secret Service. There are currently 17 full-time protectees, more than any time in the history of the Secret Service. And with the next campaign and the additional responsibilities that it will entail, is almost upon us. And the challenges with respect to counterfeiting, financial crime, terrorism, special events only grow. Even during this hectic time, though, the Secret Service is still maintaining its tradition of excellence, often with so many members of the service working very large numbers of hours of overtime and meeting all of its challenges with the effectiveness that has long been a hallmark of the Secret Service. If some of that stuff about overtime sounded like an appeal to the Secret Service's appropriators, that is exactly what it was. As one of the 17 full-time protectees, I'd like to just take a moment to personally acknowledge the incredibly talented and professional members of my detail who perform so remarkably every day. They set the highest standards for themselves, and they always meet those standards. I have to say that my family has been at least as impressed as I have been. In the first weekend after I was named, after I was sworn in as Treasury Secretary and was being protected, the family went to a movie with what that involves with the Secret Service, and as we made our way to our seats, my 6-year-old son said in a voice that at least half the movie theater could hear, "Daddy, I don't want to sit with you, I want to sit with the Secret Service." Gets you thinking. And then we had a family camping trip, and the family all compared how good I was at putting up the tent with how good some of the guys in the Secret Service who helped out were. And then my wife discusses physical fitness. Dad and the members of the Secret Service. It's really quite something. But it is a remarkable group of people who are part of this organization, and I have been proud to get to know some of them very well. Now, there is some irony in being in the position of introducing the President of the United States to the Secret Service of the United States after he has been president for 7 years. One senses that there is very little that I could say about the President to them that they do not already know. So what I'll do is steal the President's joke from the last time I introduced him. I introduced the President and described many of his accomplishments, and he responded by saying that I had illustrated one of his principles of political life, that one should always be introduced by one who you had just appointed to high political office. So I don't know quite how to follow all of that, except to say that it gives me great pleasure to introduce a man who has been an example to so very many of us, a man who has done so much to make this country a better place, and who has done so much to prepare not just our country, but the world for the millennium that lies ahead. President of the United States, Bill Clinton.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Secretary Summers, Director Stafford, Commissioner Peck, Monsignor Bldg, Ms. Worley, Congressman Colby and Congressman Hoyer, Sergeant at Arms, living good, Mr. Berger, Secretary Johnson, and I especially appreciate the presence of 3 former directors of the Secret Service here today, L.J. Bauer and John McGaw and Stu Knight. I thank them for coming. thank the Marines for giving us such wonderful music today. Didn't they do a great job? Thank you. I think that's the only thing I'm going to miss more than Air Force One when I'm gone. Having music everywhere I go, provided by the Marines. I wanted to be here for a number of reasons today. At first, I just wanted to look out and see some friendly faces. I just finished a press conference. And it's nice to do that. I wanted to see this beautiful building, and I knew I would be given the experience of seeing this beautiful building. I want to thank Larry Cockle for letting me come in the front door today. You know, usually when I go into a building, the Secret Service makes me go into an underground parking garage, pass all the garbage, up the service elevator. You think this is like the last time I went to the Hilton here. I have been into the service entrance so much that they had an employee in every section of the Hilton Hotel, in every part of the work. And they met me when I came in, and they gave me a laminated employee ID card. Just something else I owe to the Secret Service. I also was hoping that I might get another invitation to try out some more of the Secret Service training that I got at Beltsville with Hillary a couple of years ago. We're still looking for that escape pod on Air Force One. We haven't found that yet. Excuse me. I want to also say how much I appreciate the leadership that Brian is giving to the Secret Service. The only apprehension I had about his becoming the director was that he wanted to extend the protection of the PPD to country music singers and motorcycle gangs, and I had to draw the line somewhere. Actually, I came here most of all to say thanks. I compliment the architects, the contractors, and all those involved in the construction of this magnificent building. And I do believe it will reinforce all the values and sense of community that Brian talked about. Harry Truman once said the Secret Service was the only boss he had as president, with the exception of Mrs. Truman. And even when I don't like it, I have to admit that's true. And I came here to say thank you on behalf of Hillary and Chelsea and myself. I know Hillary wanted to be here today. I can't tell you how I feel about the Secret Service the way I sometimes feel about some of my friends in the Congress. I like them a lot more than they like me. They've had to put up with me on so many different occasions under such stress. You know, you wake up in the morning and you're worried about something else, and you take it out by being a little short. You're impatient because you're tired and you got a headache. They have to put up with all of it and act like you're still president, even when you're not acting like it. You're really being a person. I think of all the sacrifices that the Secret Service and the PTV has made. I think about all these long, exhausting trips we take. I've seen the worried look in the agent's eyes whenever I get out and make some spontaneous stop into an unmagged crowd. A lot of times at night I'm working late and I come down and I walk in between, sometimes after midnight, between the office and the house, and the agents are always there, and I often wonder how many children they have and how hard it must be for them to be awake while their children are sleeping and sleeping while their children are awake. Sometimes I just worry that they're going to have a heart attack on the job. I never will forget the first time. All the Secret Service that's been in PPD knows this. You know, there's this sort of elaborate little electronic guard system out around the White House. And if anything triggers the alarm, if you'll forgive me, all hell breaks loose with the Secret Service. You know, they're convinced that, 45 terrorists are storming the gates, so they have to do it. That's why we're also taken care of. But any little old thing can trigger that deal. And I remember the first time that happened, I didn't know it. I was up on the third floor of the White House and the residence on the second floor, and I didn't know what happens. But what happens is the elevator stops and the SWAT team occupies the staircase with their semi-automatic weapons. So They're all looking for somebody that's invading the White House. I come tromping down the staircase to the 3rd floor. This guy comes rushing up on the 2nd floor. I look up, and there he is with his weapon pointed at me. And I thought, this would be a heck of a note for the Secret Service. Clinton killed by agent protecting the president. That poor, I think he still has nightmares about that. We're all laughing about it. This is a hard job, and it's an important job. And it's important, the protection that are provided to other people and all the other things that the Secret Service does. And I want to say more about that in a moment, but especially I want everyone to know. I want Larry and Donnie and all the people on PPD and all their predecessors to know how profoundly grateful I am for the way my wife and my daughter and I have been treated and genuinely cared for and protected whether we liked it or not. It has made an enormous degree of difference in the confidence with which I think the American people can express toward their government. And we are all in your debt. I also want to thank you for naming this building after the 32 brave men and women who gave their lives in guarding our democracy and in whose memory the building now stands. 10 of those 32, I'm sad to say, lost their lives during my presidency, including the 6 in the Oklahoma City bombing, one of the most difficult events in my life. You have honored their memory in 2 ways. First, by naming this building in their honor, and second, by using this building to continue your mission and their mission. Most people know the Secret Service as these sort of mysterious, stone-faced figures that are either steely-eyed or masked behind sexy sunglasses, protecting presidents and visiting world leaders. They don't know much about the ongoing efforts of the Secret Service to protect the integrity of our financial system. But that's a proud history that stretches back 130 years now. When our country was awash in counterfeit currency after the Civil War, America turned to the Secret Service. When 3 presidents were assassinated in 4 decades, America turned to the Secret Service, broadening the mandate at the beginning of this century to include protective duties. Now, with the new challenges we face in a new and rapidly changing world, America still turns to the Secret Service. You are out there every day fighting telecommunications fraud, credit card fraud, computer crimes, counterfeiting, abuses of government programs, taking on your investigative and protective assignments across the country and all around the world. Regardless of the times or the tasks, there has always been a thread of honor and integrity, trust, and true competent performance. Also, a remarkable ability to adapt to change and challenge. Those values are symbolized in this building. It is a solid, solid building, standing on a firm foundation, but looking toward the future. So today I'm honored to join you in dedicating this building, in honoring the memory of those who gave their lives for what you do every day, and in saying a special, special word of profound appreciation for the many sacrifices so many have made for me and my family and our country. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you again for joining us today. And we invite you to join us for coffee and refreshments just outside in the atrium.